Hey everybody, this is Wes Schrickle with the Orchard Podcast. We're really excited about today's conversation about Sabbath. If you've been enjoying this Lenten series, please like and subscribe. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back. We are so glad that you've joined us again for the Orchard Family Podcast for our Lent series. My name is Alex. I'm one of the pastors in the Orchard family.
I'm Jessica Gray from Tupelo.
Great
And
job.
I'm Wes Schrickle from Tupelo.
So glad to have y'all here
Glad
again.
to be here.
Welcome back to our discussion as we're talking about some spiritual disciplines, breaking some of them down. There's a whole lot that we're not even going to cover in this whole series. But for today's conversation, we're talking about the word Sabbath and the discipline of Sabbath or Sabbath rest. So for each of you, what does Sabbath look like in your life? What is the way that you take Sabbath or you take rest? Does that like have a thing that you do every single week? What does that kind of look like?
I don't know. I have struggled with that over the years, I will say.
Thanks for your honesty.
But I don't take it on Sunday
Nope.
because if you work at your church, that's not a day you're doing Sabbath. I think I find it in little ways. Fridays are our day off, and I really try to do something on Friday that is life-giving to me. And this may sound really silly, but one of my favorite things to do on a Friday is for Evelyn, my 4-year-old, and I, we go to TJ Maxx.
Okay.
And we don't necessarily buy anything, but it's like intentional time that like she loves to go there. We go to the candle aisle and we smell candles until our noses hurt. But it's just like we just enjoy doing that together, and that like refreshes my soul. So I'm not
Absolutely.
exactly
That's
just
so cool.
not doing anything, but it's time that we get to spend together. We both really enjoy it, and we don't even buy anything most of the time. It's just we love to go look at the things, smell the candles, and it's just I don't know. It's just intentional time for the two of us, and it really fills my soul.
So every Friday you can find Jess and
Yes,
Evelyn
pretty
in the
much.
candle aisle at TJ Maxx.
Yes.
Wes, what about you?
To me, I think it's like the same thing. I have Friday
You
off.
go smell candles?
No. No, I don't. But I do. Well, I mean, I like candles. I'm not opposed to them. But I just think like Sabbath and rest for me is like Friday or Saturday when I don't have to get up and go. You know, I don't have to get up and go and be somewhere. I can get up and I can drink my coffee, sit in my chair, and read.
It's slower.
I've got my Bible and then whatever book I'm reading, and I can just sit and read and relax. And to me, that's like the most like Sabbath, whatever. You know, my kids are at school. My wife and I are both off, and then we usually like go and have lunch or something together.
Yeah.
It's because we both work at a church. We both have the same time off, and it's a really good time for us to be together.
Very cool.
Yours was way more spiritual than mine.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm taking out is like all the time I'm wasting on my phone when I'm supposed to be reading, and then playing video games, and all that other stuff that I do to waste time. But yeah, time is restrictive to
Yes.
work. All this stuff. It's like, and I'm not great at getting up super early, so I'm usually like I'm getting up when I have to get up to go to work and everything.
Yep.
So it's a time. I have to find other times during the week. But and then the other thing I would just say is like just any kind of like recreation that's life giving. So going for a run, riding my bike, going to the gym, like just anything like fishing, hunting, that kind of stuff that I like to do.
I'm very routine. I'm very regimented. I try my hardest to make like every Sabbath kind of the same. I'm a planner. I like to have a plan. And so for me, I do something similar in the slowness, but I will drop my son off at daycare, and then I try to go on a run or go play pickleball or go do something like really physically active. I think I've discovered in ministry that our jobs are really emotionally taxing. They're really mentally taxing, but they're not always physically taxing.
Yeah. A lot of sitting.
Yeah, a lot of sitting and
eating with people.
I don't just do that great. And so to get up, to go on a long run, to go play pickleball for a couple hours, play golf, or go on a hike or something like that. And then I usually come back, have a really big lunch, like take my time cooking and enjoying a meal. And then I just try to be creative in the afternoon because typically I'm spent physically, and so I try to create, if that's like building something or writing something or making music or do something, just like an exercise of the different part of the brain for me. Still like creating in the world. So those are all very life-giving things, and as y'all talk about, like that is the purpose of a Sabbath, right? That we would do things that bring us joy, that offer us life. So many times our lives feel, I kind of compare it to a shaken up snow globe, that our lives, just every day, you're just kind of like shaking the snow globe every single day when you go to work and you solve the problems and you have the same conversations, and, just over and over, it's just kind of shaking the snow globe. And Sabbath is a day where we just don't let it shake. You just allow everything to settle, to rest. And so there's this word in the scriptures that we find, it's called the word nuach. And it's this word that simply means to give rest, to find rest, to settle. And it's like a word that is given to you, right? You are given nuach and you are rested. Where do you feel, is there a moment in your day or a place maybe that you feel most rested or like at rest? Because like for me, I've got a recliner. I've got a chair in our living room, and like when I sit in that chair after my kids have gone to bed, and I'm like wearing my sweatshirt, and the end of the day, Grizzlies are on, Braves are on, and I just sit in my chair. I feel like a really old man saying it, but like that's the moment in time where I'm at rest.
Yeah, if I wasn't diagnosed with GERD, I would really like to recline. But reclining.
Talk about old man.
Reclining's hard for me with acid reflux. But
I'm gonna talk about my GERD real quick.
But yeah, I just like being able to go to sleep. Like sleep's such a gift, like just laying down at the end of the day, and like I usually have my Kindle or a book or like whatever next to the bed, and just being able to like the permission to rest, like, man, our culture is not great at giving us permission to rest. Our culture is so like, go, go, go. Time is money. Your worth is based on how hard you work. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Yeah. And like, you need to work to the bone, and the word of God says otherwise, God gives us permission otherwise. So just to be able to rest and to not like that, even while we're resting, God's still always working.
That's a good word.
I'm a power napper.
Okay.
Like a 20-minute power nap does amazing things for me. And there is like that moment you lay down, like, I know it's going to be really good. And it usually happens on the weekends. I try not to do it at work. Not saying
try
that
not to.
I'm going to say that I've never visited the prayer room in the middle of the day.
Yeah, just praying though.
Yeah,
right?
just praying. That's right.
Deep.
Yes, but I don't know. There is just that, like, when you like on a Friday or a Saturday and really on a Sunday afternoon too, of just have the ability just to stop for a minute. Lay on your bed, and a lot of times my daughter is with me, and there's just like that 20-minute, like, I know that this is what I'm doing. I'm resting. I'm truly resting my body.
So how do you stop yourself from 20 minutes not turning into 4 hours?
I wake up. I just wake up.
Man, I wish I had that gift, because it's like
I cannot nap.
If I nap, it turns into like 4 hours later.
Well, no, I'll wake up in 15 or 20 minutes, but I wake up like sweaty and grouchy and like
I'm
more
like so
angry than I
rejuvenated.
ever was
no,
before.
I hate the world.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. No, I like wake up like rejuvenated, and I can tackle anything after a power nap.
And like, that's a great point, that Sabbath means a whole lot of different things for a lot of different people. I know for some, it's you can't relax unless you have like a really clean house, and it's really therapeutic to like deep clean your house and to feel like things are organized and laundry is done and dishes are put away and all that. And then you've got other people who are like, that's the last thing I want to do on a day off is clean the house, and or for some it's mowing the yard is like a really, peaceful thing. For other people, that's like the worst chore that they have to do in their week and so it's the difference. Sabbath really is the difference between like get to and have to.
Yes.
It's on a Sabbath day that we get to do the things that we want.
I always had, I think, a misconception of it too, because I think when you use the word rest, like, I just kind of thought you had to be like docile and not do anything and like be silent.
Not allowed to work or sweat.
Yes,
or...
like go shopping. You can't do any of those things. And then I love that we all use the word of life-giving. Like, what is the thing that is life-giving to you that refreshes your soul? And it doesn't have to be sitting in silence And maybe for some people that may be it.
Absolutely.
I am a little bit of an introvert. I do sometimes need just to be alone and be quiet. But my idea of Sabbath doesn't have to be that I can't do anything. And so,
yeah, it's just meant to bring you life, because there's so
Yes.
many parts. I mean, as you talked about, Wes, that our culture is pushing the gas pedal. They're pushing for more, whatever it could be, for more, over and over again. And we see the ways of God are calling us to slow down, to be more intentional with that time. Even back to the Ten Commandments that are given to Moses, to the people who have just come out of slavery, right? The Israelite people, they have no culture at this moment. All they know is slavery. I mean, they have no identity as a core people. And so to those people, to his people, God gives these commandments to give them identity, to give them a resetting point of like, here's what our culture is based around, and is based around, these things that are for your benefit and for my glory. So one of those 10 commandments particularly relates to the Sabbath. Will you read this? This is out of Exodus 20.
Exodus 28 through 11. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, your livestock, and any foreigners living among you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy.
So there's two ideas that kind of come out of this that I want to talk about. Is the first that he says that no one in your household's allowed to work. And this is a little bit of the separation we've already talked about, right? That like there's a difference between work and toil. And if you're blessed to have a job where not every day feels like work, there are some days that it's a great joy and really light and easy. And if you love your job, hopefully those days outnumber the days that feel really hard and like work. But work means different things for different people, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, the difference between like work and toil, the thing that we were created to do on this earth, and then kind of the product of the fall, or like what happens after sin enters our world, is that begins to be toilsome to work and to do the thing that we were meant to do here on earth. And so it's a matter of life-giving. What is the most life-giving thing to us? And then the other thing is how God is cited as the example to follow in this. So why do you think he cites God at creation as this model or this example that we should follow?
Well, I mean, he just created the whole universe.
Kind of tough work.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe for us
and
to
very
think through.
Intricate in the way that he did it, and then he still found time to rest, and he needed that time after what he had just done.
Yeah.
Kind of have two thoughts. One is that 7 days, 7 being like perfection, kind of that number symbolically because of creation. I mean, that's where the 7 originally comes from, is God created the world in 7 days. And it's like this complete and this whole kind of going back to like Sabbath and Nuach, being like, hey, I can rest now. There's something that God does, I think, that makes the 7th day, it's like, it's okay to stop and appreciate the work, because on the 7th day, he does everything that he does, and he looks on it and he says, it is good.
Yeah.
And you think about like talking about mowing the lawn. Mowing the lawn is one of those things where like when I get done mowing the lawn, there's just something about like I've accomplished something.
Yeah.
And like I can look back on it and be like, this is satisfactory.
You
work.
stand there with your hands on your hips like a dad.
Yeah,
and you're
like a dad.
Look at all
I got
that
like
I've done.
really high tube socks on and
your Air Monarchs
short
are
coat shorts.
all green.
Yeah. There's something about it, or like I remember like when I would. I guess now when you preach, when you're a preacher, it feels like you have a paper due every week, kind of when you're preaching. But when I would like finish a paper in college or seminary, or when you like finish a sermon and you've done everything you need to do, and you feel like you feel good about it. Yeah. There's something that it's like okay to look at the work and be like, hey, this is good work, and
it
appreciate
feels complete.
it and savor it before moving on to something else. And the other thing I would say is just like how countercultural giving a Sabbath day is, the fact that like God stops working, that he commands human beings to stop working. It's basically like all the way down to like slaves. Is like the man in the ancient Near East, like they believed, all the other cultures around them believed that human beings were created to be slaves of the gods. And so you would literally you would give animal sacrifices and you would do those kind of things to feed the gods. And temples were seen as like these places where, the gods used human labor to like basically build their cities and do all this stuff for them. And humans were seen as this like kind of like burdensome, worthless kind of thing. And then you have this very countercultural creation narrative in the Hebrew Bible that's like, hey, not only did God create human beings, he created human beings as the center of his world and he's given them authority and as like kind of the apple of his eye. And sacrifice and temples and stuff are meant for like worship and rest and for God enjoying his creation as in like real sacrifice, not as in like we're like slave labor. Like God's like, no, I want to do this with you.
Yeah.
And if God rests and then he commands like us to do the same thing, he didn't just create us for production.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. You bring up a great point about like the idea of the role that like appreciation and completion, like feeling the satisfaction that something is done or something is over. It's like a mom or a grandmother after the meal is served at Thanksgiving and she like sits down finally. I don't know if your grandmother would ever sit down. Mine hardly ever did, making sure everybody had their plate, right? And they like look around at the table of all of their children and their grandchildren and like the joy, the satisfaction that is, right? Like that is the goal in Sabbath. And that's meant for us to find weekly. That's meant for us to find on a regular basis, this appreciation, this great joy, this great feeling of satisfaction and completion, not just for the week that has passed, but also like looking towards the future, right? To rest from the work that we have done, but also rest from the work that we might also do. I don't know if y'all struggle with it, but I struggle to take my work home, right? That when I get home, that the workday's over. And the same is true on a day off, on a Friday or Saturday, to turn off the clock, to clock out fully, to stop working. Do y'all find that hard? Is that just me?
I find it hard emotionally. And I think the longer I've been in ministry, the better I have gotten at it. But part of our jobs is the caretaking of people and taking on their emotions and really to learn how to kind of turn that off when you get home and to be able to engage with my husband and my daughter. I don't know, not to just carry those things in it, but it's kind of a trained tool to really make yourself do that. So
I agree.
Yeah, it's not a super struggle for me. It used to really be. And there's just times like with our jobs in a sense, some people's jobs are like clock in, clock out. Some people are not. Our jobs, for speaking like in ministry, you just never know when something's going to come up that you have to do. But for the most part time, I don't even take my laptop home with me. And I think part of that is just like for years in ministry, and I think this is common for all jobs, not just ministry, but it's especially dangerous in ministry of just like my job is my identity and my job is my relationship with God. And so, man, I did that for a long time and it broke me down, I'm, only God loves me based on what I can do in my job and like all this kind of stuff. And like, I would do my job because I want to serve God and it's a job, but yeah, like I try to leave it at, and I think emotionally that's a little harder, I might not bring my laptop with me, but I bring like interactions and like all that
concerns,
stuff. I still bring that stuff with me, but I've tried to do better. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, as more as to say like, man, it almost like got me out of ministry because I was so burnt out.
Wow. There is an identity component that's given to our work, not just culturally, but even personally, right? When we introduce ourselves, I mean, even as we introduced ourselves at the beginning of the podcast, my name's Alex. I'm one of the pastors, right? Like that's my work. When you meet somebody, out and you meet somebody, you go, hey, what's your name? What do you do? Right? Like it is an identifier of who we are. And God gives that to man in the garden, right? As like a thing that they are to put their hands to do every single day, that they are meant to, like tend the ground and care for the ground and for the soil. But it's not meant to be the core identifier of who they are, of what they do. And like you're saying, like that's what our world would seek to tell you is of the most important thing what you do, how you fill your days, like how you make money, those types of things.
Yeah, I think that's why I say, like, it's not just ministry that we
Right.
identify. Like, we all kind of like, because our jobs tend to have like a socioeconomic and like class kind of modifier based on what you do. You know, like people can kind of know like how much you're worth,
Right.
technically, and that kind of stinks. But like going back to the garden thing, there's a great Old Testament scholar named Victor Hamilton. And he says that, you know, God frustrates men working, like when God curses, it sets out like the punishment for sin
Right,
in
for
Genesis
Adam and
3. Yeah, he curses the ground for men, like from the sweat of your brow. Now you will take, you know, it's going to be hard for you to work the ground. And for women, he frustrated childbearing.
Yep. Made it painful.
Yeah, because like in the ancient world, there wasn't like job fairs. You know, it wasn't like what do you want to be when you grow up. It was like if you're a man, you worked the ground, and if you're a woman, like you had children. And in that time, like how much livestock or how much land you had or whatever was
that
like
was the status.
Yeah, that was status, and that was like you're blessed by God. And for women, it was like how many children you have shows like how blessed you are by God. And Victor Hamilton just says that, you know, God frustrates these things for human beings because these are the things that we most likely put our identity in, you know, that our work or like what we're about,
or
you
title.
know, and if he didn't make those things hard, we would never turn to him. You know, and so it's actually like a work of grace and mercy.
Yeah.
So we turn back to the source of life.
So Sabbath is that moment where we're able to put the title down, we're able to put the work down, we're able to put down the hard things of our weeks and of our jobs and of our days and all of that type of thing, to put that down in order to turn to him. Right. I mean, even as we talked about last week about in prayer, about the authority going to him as the one who can meet our needs, properly placing our view of ourselves. When we, because I think when we're told, hey, if you'll not work for a day, you'll actually feel better about the other 6 days. Where culturally we want to go, no, there's not enough hours in the 7-day work week. I got to maximize my time, right? I've got to do this because it's the only day I'm not here, and I've got to, you know, maximize time here. And I think what we actually find is that it rejuvenates us for the other 6 days and the work that is left and from those other 6 days.
So one of the things that I would have like intellectually said I knew was true, like in my mind, but in my heart, I didn't really live it or believe it, is that fact that God loves me the same, no matter how good I am at stuff. You know, like being good at my job. And this is where it gets like especially tricky in ministry, because like, you know, you're equating your job and your relationship with God so much, but you know, God, I'm not gonna say God doesn't care if I do good in my job, because I think we're called to do everything that we do
as to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, to the best of our abilities, and as we're doing it to the Lord. But at the same time, like whether I succeed or fail is not going to make God love me more or less. You know, and that is very not like the way our world works.
Not at all.
And so yeah, like God is not, you know, I can't make him love me more by how successful I am. And I think I lived my life for a long time, probably somewhat because of my story and the way I grew up, but you know, living a long time of like, man, God's not pleased with me because I feel like I'm failing at my job and in ministry. And man, it's just not true.
I mean, the ways of the world constantly teach us about terms and conditions. Right. I mean, that is connected to everything these days.
You read this?
Terms and conditions. I read every single one of them. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's impressive.
Never click agree. I'm just kidding. But our world always talks in terms and conditions, and our God never does. It is always unconditional. And so to put down the conditions of, well, I've got to do this, and I've got to earn this, and I've got to be about this, and I've got to maximize this, and efficiency for efficiency's sake, all of those types of things, it takes our identity. And so to stop doing those things, to put down the plow, to step away, to look at the fresh cut field, to sit down at the meal that we've just cooked, like it takes some identity sacrifice, right? To stop, to rest. The very first time that the word nuach is used in the scriptures, it's in Genesis 8, where God floods the earth in Genesis 7. Noah builds an ark. We know the story of Noah, right? And the animals that come, and the rains come, and the waters rise, and the whole earth floods. And it's not until Genesis 8, when the rain has stopped, the waters subside, that it says that the ark came to rest on top of a mountain. And the word that it's given there is nuach. And it is that rest after the winds, after the rains, after the chaos of the storm of the week, that we have this intentional moment to stop, to slow down, to give rest, to find rest, to work out of that. And so for anybody who feels like Sabbath is just a really tough discipline to come up with, 24 hours to not do anything, to not knock off the list, to take the to-do list and put it on hold, or to take the list of chores and to put it on hold. I think one piece of advice that we can offer is to start small, to start hour by hour, week after week, just adding more and more time to be able to rest. It, just like all of these other disciplines that we're talking about, it takes practice. It takes growing in the ability to. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was thinking, but why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, why would you not take that time? And so.
Yeah, like if you really think about it, what all that is offered to you, take it.
Yeah.
Rest.
When you're talking about Noah and the flood and all that kind of stuff, and like rest being like this kind of first thing that comes after that, it really reminded me of just like, God created and he rested at the end of creation, and then like the Noah story is kind of like a decreation event where God like basically allows chaos and to decreate this like sinful, terrible world, but then recreate something new. And it just reminds me, like in Hebrews talks a lot about rest, and that there will be, the way Hebrews talks about it, that there will be a day in the future where, kind of like an end times rest, where God will judge this world. And he, and everything will be like this thing that we've been talking about in our personal lives, this state of like rest and well-being that's like lasting.
Yeah.
Because right now we're in this cycle of like creation and work.
Yeah, it's a cyclical thing that has to happen every week.
And he says this in Hebrews 4:6. It says, "So God's rest is there for people to enter, but those who first heard this good news failed to enter because they disobeyed God. So God sent another time for entering his rest, and that time is today. God announced this through David much later in the words already quoted. Today, when you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts." He says, "Now, if Joshua had succeeded in giving them this rest, God would not have spoken about another day of rest that is still to come. So there is a special rest still waiting for the people of God. For all who have entered into God's rest have rested from their labors just as God did after creating the world. So let us do our best to enter that rest." And so he's talking about this like future day. Like right now, the life we live in the grand scheme of things is a life of work. Right. Like we just as God gave Adam and Eve responsibility, like he's given us responsibility as his image bearers to work with him to expand his kingdom. And but we, it's toil because of the sin and the injustice and the evil that still exists in our world. But one day God's going to rid all of those things. Like, the flood event is kind of this proto end times, like in the end, there's going to be a similar thing that will happen, but this time it's permanent, that Jesus will reign. He will judge those who are opposed to him and his kingdom, and everything will come to rest.
Yeah. So for anybody listening, that Sabbath feels really, really hard, and you're considering what it looks like to try out rest and to try out this Sabbath, and it feels like something you want to do. I mean, the question that we can start with is, what is the thing that feels like you were created to do, and how do you do more of that thing on your Sabbath? Whatever it may be, that feels like it is giving you life. So again, as we talk about every single week, we don't have time, the full time to discuss all that can be found in Sabbath, right? But for those that have any questions, just a couple book recommendations. This great book that we read in seminary, Living the Sabbath, that really talks about like our role in creation and creation care and taking joy out of God's gifts. And then if you haven't read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, I want to encourage you to read this book. Even as we talked about the efficiency of the world, the pace of the world, John Mark Comer does a great job of communicating what is the pace of God and the slowness, the intentionality with which we should live. So again, we are so grateful that you have tuned in to this, whether watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're listening. We hope that this has been formative for you, an opportunity for you to grow deep in the love of Christ. And as an opportunity to branch out, I want to encourage you to share this with somebody. If somebody came to mind while you're listening to this, give them a share and let them know that you like this. And we hope to see you next week. Have a great one.